Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches, where today I'm going to be talking about How to Make a Monster from 2001. Uh, and the film introduces us to Clayton Software, a company with a big problem on their hands. Their scary new horror game isn't scary at all. Irate with this failure, the company's owner throws out the entire development team and replaces them with a new trio of developers. These three are an eccentric group, to say the least, but they have the skills. With the assistance of company intern Laura, they combine their respective programming gifts, and a frightening new game is soon close to completion. The real genius of the game, though, it seems, is the artificial intelligence behind it. According to the character's dialogue, this cutting edge AI will actually learn the player's moves and adapt to them. Gosh, I wonder if that little bit of information will prove significant. Anyway, during a motion capture process late in development, so gratuitous you almost have to admire its audacity topless scene from skin flick veteran Julie Strain, a lightning bolt fries the systems at the company. Someone is going to have to stay all night to reload the game backups. The four characters play the game to see who has to do that, and the loser settles in for a long night at work. Now, you may want to sit down for this innovative and surprising plot development, but the power surge from the lightning strike, together with the still running AI software of the game, combined to transform the motion capture suit into a killer robot. Bet you didn't see a monster coming in a movie called How to Make a Monster, did you? Who would have expected that kind of thing to happen? In any case, the next day, the remaining two developers, plus Laura the intern and their cranky boss, all arrive in the building and find themselves trapped inside as the robot goes on a rampage. Will any of them survive their killer new game? So, Stan Winston is renowned as one of the greats of cinema's visual effects and makeup business. In his more than 30-year career, he won 2 Emmys and 4 Academy Awards, and he was nominated for the Oscars on a further 6 occasions. It's pretty good going. You've probably heard of many of the films he worked on as a visual effects and makeup expert. It's pretty much a roster of all the big science fiction films of the 80s and 90s. Winston's work was featured in Aliens, The Terminator, Terminator 2, Predator, Batman Returns, and Jurassic Park, as well as many other projects. His name was so well known and regarded, in fact, that Winston not only formed his own special effects studio, but around the turn of the millennium, he was able to parlay his reputation into a producer's role. It began with a series of made for cable science fiction horror films, each of which was a modern reinterpretation or reimagining of a film concept from the 1950s. Not a direct remake, but a reimagining. This was the third such film. So, how is it? Well, for much of its runtime, it's a schlocky, trashy bit of fun, but does have a couple of fairly major flaws that I think ultimately drag it down. For now, though, let's start with the positives. Unsurprisingly, given the involvement of Stan Winston and his special effects studio, How to Make a Monster features pretty darn good old school physical effects. The killer robot is perhaps not the most innovative or imaginative of designs, but it looks reasonably intimidating and it doesn't obviously encumber the actor inside. Nothing breaks the immersion of a scary monster suit faster than being obvious that the person wearing it can barely move. Now, the same praise cannot be given to the digital effects, mind you. And there's a fair bit of those. The film is, after all, about a killer computer game. So there's a CGI version of the monster that the characters encounter while playing said game, which is linked to the very real monster that is terrorizing them. The computer graphics, frankly, weren't particularly impressive even for the time frame in which this movie was made, and they're certainly showing their age now, more than 20 years later. Fortunately, the on screen cast proved more in line with the physical effects than the digital. The film's most prominent name these days is Claire Duvall, who plays Laura. Duvall has, in my experience, always been good, even in projects I haven't otherwise liked, and she's solid here. And so, with the inevitable exception of Julie Strain, whose acting skills were never why she got hired for films, is everybody else. I'm sure they all know that they're in a schlocky, silly movie, but they play their role solidly and they do their best to give the movie a real sense of menace. Unfortunately, they're going to face an uphill battle on that front because the person who wrote the movie seems to have little grasp about how a film or a computer game should actually go about scaring those who watch or play it. This is particularly noticeable when we come to the game within the film. The supposedly terrifying interactive experience delivered by our quartet of characters appears to be nothing more than a fairly simple fighting game against an admittedly somewhat gruesome looking monster. But while this guy is hard to beat, and if I lose, the game is over, might be challenging or even frustrating, it's not scary. You'll inevitably lose eventually in the famous 1978 video game Space Invaders, but that in no way makes the experience frightening. Scary video games rely much more on tension and atmosphere than they do on just being difficult, though they can, of course, be both. And given that 2001 was something of a banner year for scary video games, with the release of the iconic horror title Silent Hill 2, I think the real world gaming scene was a lot more creepy and intense than anything this movie serves up. But honestly, even though it's not very scary, How to Make a Monster comes very close to being a schlocky, trashy bit of fun. The key word there, alas, is close. For my money, the film goes badly off track in its final few minutes with a mean spirited twist that, for my tastes, badly misfires. Not everyone might agree, but I felt it badly misfired. I think what the film is going for here is a darkly comic moment where the character who thinks they're the smartest person in the room finally gets their comeuppance because they underestimate the put upon audience surrogate character, with that character then getting to hoist the jerk on the petard of their own hubris. But I don't feel the execution is successful. Instead of feeling like a "ha, take that jerk" moment, it feels like a misanthropic downer of an ending that drags the audience surrogate character into the muck with the jerk. It left me feeling deflated and unhappy, which also seemed to be how the audience surrogate character was feeling about what had happened. Not the kind of ending I was looking for in a movie that's mostly schlocky fun. Next time, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is one of the most famous horror stories in the Western world, probably the whole world, and it's been adapted to the screen many times over the last century. It's also, shall we say, inspired many scripts that don't necessarily acknowledge their debt to Shelley's work. And I'm going to be looking at three such films: 1942's The Mad Monster, and two later offerings: 1960's Atom Age Vampire and The Manster, which either came out in 1959 or 1962, depending on how you want to think about it. But that is next time. Until then, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you've seen How to Make a Monster, let me know what you thought of it.